change. For the first time in 7 months, home prices are actually on the rise. New data out from Black Knight showing that nearly 80% of the 50 largest U.S. markets saw an uptick this February, the strongest single-month gain since going all the way back to last May. And that's thanks in part to lower mortgage rates, which had buyers rushing to take advantage if they could. The rate on the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is down more than 7% over the last month. Tough percent on percent, I know, but still, though, it's up since the beginning of February. So what do these wild swings in interest rates and everything else mean for the spring housing season? It's important. Let's dive into that with Black Knight's Andy Walden. He's the Vice President of Enterprise Research and, of course, our very own Diana Olick, Senior Real Estate Correspondent. Diana, I'm going to turn to you first for the bigger story here before we get into Andy. This is a very important time for the real estate market. It's spring. How is it shaping up?
Well, it seems like there's a lot of competition out there, and it was actually really surprising to see the competition come in the early part of the year, that is January and February. Remember, we saw that big sales number in February jump 14.5%. Those were contracts signed in December and January, and that was all because mortgage rates dropped down from their highs of October. So we started to see a lot of buyers come back in, and all that competition, I'm guessing, is what put the pressure back under prices again. I mean, we went to several open houses in different cities in February, and while everyone was concerned alike about mortgage rates rising, they all said the same thing. There's still tons of competition out there and too little supply. So we were actually talking about the possibility of prices go up, and look at that, they did, Dom.
And it's not just the price. So Andy, this is a crazy price dynamic. It's a vicious cycle if you want to look at it in that way. It all depends on perspective, right? If there's little supply of housing on the market, it doesn't matter when it comes on, it gets snapped up at whatever the asking price is, and it just kind of keeps feeding on itself. What exactly can break the cycle?
Yeah, and that's really the challenge that we faced this year. Is it's as much about the supply side as it is the demand side, right? If you look at rate lock volumes in our Optimal Blue platform, they've returned a little bit, but they're still running 10 to 15% below what they traditionally would be at this point in the year. So you can tell that the affordability constraint is still weighing on demand out there in the market. At the same time, we've seen supply fall for now 5 consecutive months. We're seeing almost half the level of inventory that we should. 90% of markets are moving in the wrong direction in terms of inventory. And so you're right. I mean, there's lower levels of demand than you traditionally would see this time of year, but it's bumping up against even lower supply, and it's causing these prices to harden.
Okay, so this is something that a lot of homeowners in America, especially those, Andy, that have refinanced mortgages or purchased homes, call it 4 to 5 years ago, when interest rates were low. Many of those people are now saying to themselves that they are not going to move because what do they expose themselves to? Having to find another place at a higher price with a higher interest rate on their mortgage. So what exactly gets more supply on market if I and everybody else wants to stay in their homes because we have a lower carrying cost if we've done it in the last 5 years?
Yep. Yeah, and it's especially the last couple of years, right, when rates were down in the sub 3% range. And that's the big question that the market is grappling with right now. And there's not a simple answer, right? There's a very clear path on the demand side of how that gets back to normal. And you've seen that ebb and flow as rates have moved. So when interest rates got down near 6%, you've seen that demand return. You haven't seen interest rate movement, at least to date, impact sellers' willingness to sell. Right? And it's just gotten worse and worse as we moved into early 2023. There were 27% fewer homes listed for sale in February, up from 25% fewer in January. So there is no real clear path. Now, I think builders are going to help. The fact that we've started to see transaction volumes bottom out and buyer sentiment return, and the fact that we've seen buyers willing to return to the market when rates have fallen, I think you're going to see some builders kind of dip their toes back into the water here and those types of volumes rise. But the lifeblood of the housing market is really those existing home sellers. And until we see a meaningful rebound there, we're going to be in a challenging inventory environment.
All right. Diana, we're going to give the last word to you here. There have been a lot of interesting reports about where we are seeing some of the biggest increases in prices versus decreases, the hot and cold markets. In just a few moments here, what's the most intriguing market dynamic to watch for in the coming months?
Well, I think, as you said, we're seeing the hottest of the hot markets cool the most, and then we're seeing the most affordable markets gain in price, and that's the Midwest. And of course, we're seeing Miami. That's just a whole nother story. It's just going to keep going higher. But what's interesting to me is these affordable markets, the Pittsburghs, the Clevelands, the markets we don't think about so much. How many more people are going to start moving there because they are so much more affordable and push prices higher? All
right. Diana Oleg, thank you very much for that. Andy Walden as well for the state of play in real estate. We appreciate it. Well, that does it for us here.